Okay, so yeah, obviously first thing to talk about with this chapter is we get the reveal that Laguna is the leader of Oasis and that Shura is the emperor of the Nero Empire. But added to that is that apparently Shura's ascension to the throne wasn't brought about by Nero being overthrown, but simply he stepped down and has become Drakken Joe's business partner as, I guess, the empire in this world has continued to thrive. Like, with this world, it implies the fact that Shura isn't entirely on his, like, world conquering, I'm gonna fuck everything up kind of bullshit. He genuinely, respectfully, is running the Nero Empire as his father did, as his adopted father did, because in this world he is, I guess you could say, he's somewhat respectful of his adopted father's legacy. And honestly, I don't know if people really understand just how much of a problem this is for our goal of reuniting everyone, as this is another example of this world continuously throwing one major roadblock after another in our faces. Because when it comes to Laguna and the idea that he's the leader of Oasis in this world, how much you want to bet that the current roster of Oasis also includes Ijuna, and that if she is a member of Oasis in this world, and assuming Mashima is in his own way paralleling this the way I think he is, then that has to mean, much like with Shura in our universe, Ijuna has probably tied herself to Laguna through Red Destiny. Again, just a theory I've cooked up in my own head, but one I'm kind of banking on, because understand, just the possibility in itself of this idea creates a whole slew of complications in getting Laguna back, and any of those, and that's putting aside all the other complications of having to possibly fight Shura again, which on that note, I will say, well, I don't want to completely write off the idea of Shura still being a total psychotic dick cheese in this world. The panel with him as Emperor does indicate this version of Shura might be a little bit more benevolent. Keyword being might, because I still believe he's going to be a villain when we get thrust back into the Aoi War again. It's just a matter of how much of a threat in this is this current variation of Shura. How much of a threat is he in this world? Like, are just even not even just on power, but threat. Like, how much of what we know of Shura has carried over into this variation of the character, and how much is different. That's the kind of problem I'm kind of facing down right now. That's the kind of question I have about this whole thing. Now, with all that said, let's talk about one of the big things with this chapter, which is that just right out of the gate, it's made clear everyone isn't exactly in fighting form. And according to one of the spoiler notes I saw when looking at the raw scans of the chapter, it was stated the reason that this is because everyone is technically in a different body, like bodies that aren't strong as the ones they had developed over the years through training in the main timeline. Like, our heroes are essentially starting from zero in different bodies. They pretty much have their power, but their bodies can't maintain the strain. Now, when I first heard this, I wasn't too thrilled about the idea, and even after reading the chapter, there are still some things that don't entirely add up to me. But at the same time, I do see the value in the idea, just to really help, like, vary up the dynamics and showing just how overconfidence did kind of get the best of our heroes in this case. Like, not realizing that, yeah, regaining their powers is one thing, gaining their strength back is another entirely, and that you can't entirely go charging into battle just because they may have that power advantage, or even just because they have knowledge and experience of how their opponents fight. Like, ultimately, there is always going to be something that hitches, something that unfortunately is going to provide a bit of a hitch to whatever is going on at the time, and they just aren't adapting correctly in the way they should be. Like, that's their biggest problem they're facing right now, is adapting to the current to their current circumstances, and that's one thing that they keep failing to account for. Also, I like how the now I also say I like how this little nerf allowed for what I feel so far is a really dynamic fight between Shiki and Nero. Because one thing I always felt was disappointing about the OA War arc is that it felt like Nero never really got the chance to show what he's really capable of, even when fighting Ziggy. So here I feel like we're getting a much more unrestrained and understandable look at how powerful Nero really is. Like his fight with Shiki, again, is probably like one of my favorite fights so far. Like just seeing the how Nero utilizes his dice, how well he can fight with them. It shows that this is that Nero that there is a reason that Nero is considered to be one of the great demon generals. And this one, I think, well, I don't want to say it's a redemption necessarily. It does kind of feel like that in a way because of how he was kind of treated in the last time in the Yaoi War before this. So yeah, it's kind of nice to see like Nero like finally get the time to shine to show why he is like on the same level as Drakken Joe, Elsie, all them kind of Elsie, Shiki of being one of the great demon generals. So yeah, of course, the other major thing to talk about with this chapter is that in the midst of Weiss having problems winning his battle with Fee of his suit just not being as powerful as it used to be, Witch elects to go find Hermit so she can be convinced to help. And I like how we are kind of expediting Hermit's involvement. We're not like waiting any longer to find her. No, like the situation demands her aid because she's the only one who can actually help Weiss survive against Fee. The only question I have with this whole thing though is what's the catch? What's going to throw a wrench into Witch's attempts to get Hermit back? Because the whole setup in itself just feels a little too easy. And maybe it is my paranoia, but when things look too good to be true, it usually means Mashima is scheming something. Now, from there, it obviously begs the question about what's going to be different with Hermit's situation. And my thought is, Hermit might still have the same view about humans she did when we first met her in this world, but I don't think we're going to see her just kind of sulking aimlessly either. I feel like we are going to see her be a little more proactive in some way, whatever she's currently doing, as Mashima definitely seems to like going for the reverse of what the character's introduction was. Now, whether or not we're going to see this is also the question, because Mashima might just elect to have Hermit turn and being convinced to help off screen. I can kind of see him doing that way, because there's only so many ways to reinvent the wheel with Hermit's story, and I don't know if Mashima even really has a full, like, it really is really even feeling that maybe Hermit is even gonna be needing of another redemption, or of her redemptions needing to be shown again. I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see. But I am curious to see what particular kind of wrench, what's going to be different this time compared to what happened before. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Enemy, signing off. Later, everyone.